There's a moment. It happens weeks, sometimes months before an avoidant partner ever says, "I think we should break up." And here's the unsettling part. You probably won't even notice it happening. Not because you weren't paying attention, but because it's designed to be invisible. If you've ever been blindsided by an avoidant partner ending things out of nowhere, this video is going to explain exactly what happened behind the scenes. And by the end, you'll know the checkpoints that tell you whether your relationship is heading toward real security or quietly heading for the exit. Let's get into it. Most people think avoidants leave because of one big blow-up, a fight, a betrayal, one bad night. That's rarely how it actually goes. Researchers like Mikulincer and Shaver, who've spent decades studying attachment behavior, describe something called deactivating strategies, small, almost automatic habits an avoidant partner uses to create emotional distance when closeness starts to feel like too much. The decision to leave isn't one event. It's the buildup of tiny withdrawals that eventually add up to a closed file. Here's something most people don't realize. These strategies aren't a conscious plan. Nobody sits down and decides, "I'm going to slowly disappear." It's closer to a nervous system response. Closeness registers as a threat, and pulling back is the relief valve. That's actually important, because it means the same behavior can mean two totally different things depending on what happens right after it. There are 5 specific checkpoints where this decision either gets made or gets reversed. I'll show you exactly what it looks like when someone is doing the work to stay, versus when they've quietly already left in their head. Checkpoint 1. How they handle you needing something. The first checkpoint happens the moment you ask for something. Reassurance, more time together, an apology. This is the test that matters most, because it's not about the ask itself. It's about what they do with it. When you bring up a need, an avoidant partner who is actually working on themselves will get uncomfortable, maybe even go quiet for a second, and then still show up. They might say, "Give me a minute to think about this," and actually come back to it. That discomfort followed by return is what real growth looks like. It's not smooth, it's not perfect, but it's honest. But if instead they respond by minimizing you, "You're overreacting, this is why we can't talk," or just changing the subject entirely, that's not a rough patch. That's the deactivating strategy in action, and it's usually the first quiet vote toward leaving. Checkpoint 2. The slow fade of effort. Here's the actual decision point most people miss. Psychologist Stan Tatkin, who studied attachment in couples for years, talks about how avoidant partners often start reducing effort long before they emotionally check out completely. Not dramatically, just less. Fewer check-ins, shorter replies. Plans that used to take 5 minutes to make now take 5 days. If someone's doing the work, you'll see them notice this pattern themselves. They'll say something like, "I know I've been distant, that's on me," and actually adjust. That's a person actively fighting their own instinct to disappear. But if the fade just keeps happening, and every time you name it, you get told you're too sensitive or keeping score, that's not miscommunication. That's the decision quietly being finalized. It doesn't look like rejection. It looks like busyness. It looks like stress. It looks like anything except what it actually is. Real quick, if this is already sounding familiar, drop a like, so I know I'm actually describing something real and not just theorizing in a vacuum. Checkpoint 3. What happens right after a good moment? This one's counterintuitive. Getting closer, not further apart, often triggers the pullback. Research from Simpson and Gangestad on adult attachment found that avoidant individuals frequently show the most distancing behavior right when intimacy peaks. Not when things are going badly, but when things are going unusually well. A great weekend away, saying, "I love you" for the first time, meeting the family. Moments that bring most couples closer can trigger the opposite response in someone with strong avoidant patterns. If they're working on themselves, they'll catch that instinct and stay present anyway, even if it feels unnatural to them. If they're not, you'll see a good night get followed by 2 cold, distant days, like the closeness itself needs to be paid back with distance. That's not you imagining things, and it's not something you did wrong. Checkpoint 4. How they talk about the future. This checkpoint is quieter than the others, which is exactly why it matters. Listen to how they talk about time. Not big commitment conversations, just small, everyday future references. We should try that restaurant next month. Next summer we could. That kind of language. An avoidant partner who's staying will still use it, even casually, because some part of them is building a future with you in their head. One who has already decided to leave will start talking almost entirely in the present tense. Plans stop extending past a few weeks. Questions about someday get deflected with a joke or a shrug. It's subtle, but once you notice it, you can't unnotice it. Checkpoint 5. What happens after repair? This is the checkpoint most people never even know exists, because it only shows up after a fight or a hard conversation. What happens in the hours and days after conflict tells you everything. A partner who's genuinely working on their avoidance will come back after a disagreement, even if it takes them longer than you'd like, and try to reconnect. A short text, a small gesture, effort to close the gap they created. An avoidant partner who has already made the decision to leave does the opposite. The distance after conflict doesn't shrink. It becomes the new normal. They stop repairing altogether. Silence isn't a pause anymore. It's the plan. I want to pause here and say something important, because this isn't about turning you into a detective who's grading every text message. Attachment styles aren't fixed sentences. People can and do move toward security with real effort, often through therapy. Sue Johnson, the psychologist behind emotionally focused therapy, has spent her career showing that avoidant patterns can shift when both people understand what's happening underneath them. But, and this matters, you are not responsible for making that shift happen for someone else. Watching for these checkpoints isn't a strategy to win the relationship. It's a way to see clearly, instead of hoping blindly. So here's a real question for you, and I'd genuinely love to know. Which of these 5 hit closest to home? The need, the fade, the pullback after closeness, the future talk, or the repair? Comment below, because I think a lot of people are going to see themselves in different ones, and it might help someone else reading through the comments too. If you found value in this video, don't forget to like and subscribe.